In this chapter, we are discussing about metabolism. Metabolism, from the name, you can understand that it is the sum of the chemical reactions that take place within each cell of a living organism and that provide energy for vital processes and for synthesizing new organic material. So, for synthesizing these materials, we need enzymes. So enzymes play a crucial role to metabolism because they allow organisms to drive desirable reactions that require energy and will not occur by themselves by coupling them to spontaneous reactions that release energy. So as enzymes act as a catalyst, they allow these reactions to proceed more quickly and efficiently. So enzymes also allow the regulation of metabolic pathways in response to changes in the cell's environment or signals from other cells. So enzymes are actually, what are enzymes? They are actually biological molecules that catalyze. That catalyze means it increases the rate of chemical reactions. In enzymatic reactions, the molecules at the beginning of the process called substrates are converted into different molecules called products. Like all catalysts, enzymes work by lowering the activation energy for a reaction. So thus dramatically increasing the rate of the reaction. So as a result, products are formed faster and reactions reach their equilibrium state more rapidly. So most enzyme reaction rates are millions of times faster than those of the comparable uncatalyzed reactions. Enzyme activity, what you call as, can be affected by other molecules. Like for example, those other molecules are called as inhibitors. So they decrease this enzyme activity. But there are molecules that increase the activity, that is the enzyme activity increases, so that are molecules called as activators. So activity is also affected by temperature, pressure, chemical environment, and the concentration of substrate. Some enzymes are used commercially, for example in the synthesis of antibiotics. Enzymes are usually very specific as to which reactions they catalyze and substrates that are involved in these reactions. So enzymes are very specific, and it was suggested by the one of the Nobel laureate organic chemist Emil Fischer that both enzyme and the substrate possess specific complementary geometric shapes that can be fixed. That can fit into each other exactly. So that kind of a form, or that kind of a model, that only a particular type of enzyme fits into a particular type of substrate, that type of model was called as the lock and key model. Around, in 1958, Daniel Koshland suggested another mode of modification to this lock and key model. That since enzymes are more flexible, as more flexible structure, their active site is continuously reshaped by interactions with the substrate. So as the substrate interacts with this enzyme, so as a result, the substrate does not simply bind to the active site. The amino acid chains that make up these active sites are then modeled into precise positions that enable these enzymes to perform its catalytic functions. So they are remodeled in such a way that they can enable these enzymes to perform the catalytic function. So in some cases such as glycosidases, substrate molecule also changes its shape slightly to enter the active site. Some other type of enzymes, like you can call cofactors, those do not need any additional components to show full activity. Some other it's require, however, others require non-protein molecules called cofactors to bond for activity. Cofactors can either be inorganic, like metal ions or iron sulfur clusters, or organic compounds such as flavin and heme. Organic cofactors can either be prosthetic groups which are tightly bound to an enzyme or coenzyme, which are released from the enzyme's active site during the reaction. During the reaction, once the enzyme gets attracted to the substrate and form a complex, that this cofactor is released from there. So coenzymes including NADH and NADPH and adenosine triphosphate. So these molecules may transfer their chemical groups between enzymes. An example of such an cofactor is carbonic anhydrase. Usually it has a ribbon-like structure, carbonic anhydrase. Another such group is called as coenzyme. So these coenzymes are small organic molecules that can be closely or tightly bound to an enzyme. The enzymes transport their chemical groups from one enzyme to another, and so Some of these chemicals might be riboflavin, thymine, or folic acids. Redox reactions that are important in included in chemical reactions in which the atoms have their oxidation state changed. This can be either a simple redox process such as the oxidation of carbon to yield carbon dioxide, or the reduction of carbon by hydrogen to yield methane, or a complex process such as the oxidation of glucose in the human body through a series of complex electron transfer process. So fundamentally, redox reactions are a family of reactions that are concerned with the transfer of electrons between species. So oxidation can in simple terms be called as is the loss of electrons or an increase in the oxidation state by a molecule or atom or ion. The reduction is the gain of electrons or a decrease in the oxidation state by a molecule, atom or ion. The There might be more like oxidizers and reducers present to that can help with the redox reactions. One important metabolic process we have to study in this chapter is about glycolysis. It is a 10-step pathway that cleaves each glucose molecule. That glucose molecule, as we have discussed in earlier chapter, it's a 6-carbon sugar which splits in. So glycolysis cleaves these glucose 6-carbon glucose into 2 molecules of pyruvate, whereas pyruvate is a 3-carbon sugar. That yields 2 molecules of ATP and 2 molecules of NADH. The pathway occurs in the cytoplasm, where each step is catalyzed by a different enzyme. So in each step you will come to know about a different enzyme catalyzing the reaction. So glycolysis literally means splitting sugars. So glycolysis, that is why like glucose 6-carbon glucose is split into 2 pyruvate 3-carbon compounds. So in the presence of oxygen, glycolysis is the first stage of cellular respiration. But without oxygen, glycolysis allows cells to make small amounts of ATP, but that process is called as fermentation. You can divide the glycolysis into 10 steps. So in step 1, the enzyme hexokinase phosphorylates. That is, phosphorylation means it adds a phosphate group to the glucose in cell cytoplasm. So as a result, a phosphate group from ATP is transferred to glucose, producing it a glucose 6-phosphate. Then the next step, the enzyme phosphoglucoisomerase converts glucose 6-phosphate into its isomer, that is fructose 6-phosphate. Isomer means only the structure. The molecular formula might be the same, but structures might be different. So in the second step, the phosphoglucoisomerase converts this glucose 6-phosphate into its isomer form, that is fructose 6-phosphate. So in the next step, the enzyme phosphofructokinase, which uses another ATP molecule to transfer a phosphate group to this fructose 6-phosphate to form fructose 1,6 biphosphate. And the next step, then aldose splits fructose 1,6-phosphate into 2 sugars that are isomers of each other. That is, these sugars can be dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde phosphate. Just as the first step we said that the glucose 6-phosphate and fructose 6-phosphate are isomers. In the same way, these two sugars are also isomers, that is dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde phosphate. Step 5, the enzyme triose phosphate isomerase rapidly interconverts the molecules dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde phosphate. So glyceraldehyde phosphate is removed as soon as it form to be used in the next step of glycolysis. The enzyme triose phosphate dehydrogenase serves 2 functions in the step. That is, first, the enzyme transfers a hydrogen from glyceraldehyde phosphate to the oxidizing agent nicotinamide adenine nucleotide, that is NAD+, to form an NADH. So it transfers a hydrogen to form NADH. Next, the triose phosphate dehydrogenase adds the phosphate, that is phosphorylates, from the cytosol to the oxidized glyceraldehyde phosphate to form 1,3-biphosphoglycerate. So this occurs for both molecules of glyceraldehyde phosphate produced in step. So the enzyme phosphoglycerokinase then transfers a phosphate from the 1,3-biphosphoglycerate to a molecule of ADP to form ATP, that is adenosine diphosphate, axon 1 phosphate to form an ATP. So this happens for each molecule of 1,3-biphosphoglycerate. Thus the process yields 3 phosphoglycerate molecules and 2 ATP molecules. The enzyme phosphoglyceromutase then relocates the phosphorus from 3-phosphoglycerate from the third carbon to the second carbon to form 2-phosphoglycerate. The enzyme enolase removes a molecule of water from 2-phosphoglycerate to form phosphoenol pyruvic acid. So this happens for each molecule of 2-phosphoglycerate. The enzyme pyruvate kinase then transfers a phosphate group from the phosphoenol pyruvic acid to ADP to form pyruvic acid and ATP. That is, one ATP gets added to it. So this happens for each molecule of phosphoenol pyruvate. So the overall reaction yields 2 molecules of pyruvic acid and 2 ATP molecules. That is the summary, you can say, summarized to form glycolysis. Summary of it. But in the absence of oxygen, what happens to the cells? In the absence of oxygen, you can say some cells can convert pyruvic acid into other compounds through additional biochemical pathways. So that also occurs, this even in the absence of oxygen, it occurs only in the cytosol. So when oxygen is not available, you can say anaerobic conditions, the electrons must be removed from the NADH to regenerate NAD+. So while there are many ways of accomplishing this, the most common method you can say is alcoholic fermentation. Another one form is lactic acid fermentation. In alcoholic fermentation, like such as yeast cells cultured in the absence of oxygen, a carbon atom of 2 oxygen atoms are first split into pyruvic acid, releasing a molecule of carbon dioxide. So the remainder of each pyruvic acid molecules then receives a pair of electrons from NADH, producing a molecule of ethyl alcohol. So that's why it's called as alcoholic fermentation. Unlike alcoholic fermentation, in lactic acid fermentation, it is the process when pyruvic acid is converted into lactic acid. Lactic acid involves the transfer of 2 hydrogen atoms from NADH and H plus to pyruvic acid. So in that process, NADH is oxidized to form NAD plus, which is need to keep the glycolysis operation, uh, which keeps the glycolysis operating only. Another one important term to be studied in metabolism is pyruvate oxidation. So under aerobic conditions, most eukaryotic cells and various bacteria oxidize the pyruvate produced in glycolysis to carbohydrate to carbon dioxide and H2O instead of reducing it to lactate or ethanol. So production of acetyl coenzyme A from pyruvate is an important step in pyruvate oxidation. So the molecules of acetyl coenzyme A are the form in which the Krebs cycle accepts most of its fuel. So pyruvate is oxidized to acetyl coenzyme A and carbon dioxide by an enzyme complex. So 3 enzymes are involved in this complex. That complex is called as pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. And this complex is located in the mitochondria in eukaryotes or cystosol in prokaryotes. So the oxidation of pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme is an example of irreversible oxidative decarboxylation. Citric acid cycle, or otherwise you can call as a tricarboxylic acid cycle or Krebs cycle, is another important cycle in metabolism. So it occurs in mitochondria and is a common pathway to completely oxidize the fuel molecules, which mostly is acetyl coenzyme A, as we saw in the previous step, that we get this acetyl coenzyme A by the pyruvate oxidation. The product from pyruvate, it's a product from the oxidative decarboxylation of pyruvate. It enters the cycle, and same as like glycolysis, this citric acid cycle also has 10 steps reaction to yield energy and carbon dioxide. So the first step, the raw material, you can say the starting step, it starts with acetyl coenzyme A. It is formed from fatty acids by beta oxidation and from pyruvic coenzyme A to form acetyl coenzyme A. So this reaction is catalyzed by a set of enzymes called pyruvic acid dehydrogenase. So in this reaction, the 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 carbon dioxide molecules are removed. So that's why this reaction is called as oxidative decarboxylation. But in the next step, this acetyl coenzyme A then combines with the oxaloacetic acid to form citric acid. So it contains citric acid is a 6 carbon atom contains. So this that reaction can be catalyzed by an enzyme called citric acid synthetase. Citric acid then undergoes dehydration, that is nitrogen, and it forms this aconitic acid. So that reaction can be catalyzed by another enzyme called aconitase. This aconitic acid is then hydrated and it forms isoteric acid. So that reaction can be catalyzed by an enzyme called aconitase. So both of these reactions are catalyzed by aconitase only. So isocitric acid then undergoes dehydrogenation in the presence of isocitric acid dehydrogenase to form oxalosuccinic acid. But in this reaction, two hydrogen atoms are released. So the oxalosuccinic acid which formed is then undergone decarboxylation to form a alpha ketoglutaric acid, which uses an enzyme to catalyze it is decarboxylase. So in the decarboxylation reaction, one carbon dioxide is eliminated. Hence, the alpha ketoglutaric acid has only 5 carbon atom in it. So during the next step, this alpha ketoglutaric acid is then converted into succinyl coenzyme A. That is an oxidative decarboxylation reaction, which is catalyzed by alpha ketoglutaric acid dehydrogenase. But because it is a decarboxylation reaction, two hydrogen atoms are released and they are transferred to the NAD, where further the NAD is converted to NADH. The succinyl coenzyme A formed in oxidative decarboxylation is then decarboxylated to succinic acid, which the enzyme used is succinic acid thiokinase. But in this step, the coenzyme A is liberated. Succinic acid is oxidized to fumaric acid by the removal of two hydrogen atoms, which is catalyzed by succinic acid dehydrogenase. So the hydrogen atoms are accepted by FAD and forms FADH2. Fumaric acid then undergoes hydration to form malic acid, which is catalyzed by fumarase. The final step, you can say the Krebs cycle or the tricarboxylic acid cycle, oxaloacetic acid is regenerated from malic acid by a process of dehydrogenation. So this reaction is catalyzed by malic acid dehydrogenase in the presence of NAD. So two hydrogen atoms removed are accepted by this NAD to form its NADH. The oxaloacetic acid formed in this reaction then condenses with acetyl coenzyme A to form citric acid again, and the whole cycle is repeated again. That is the citric acid cycle. Now, an electron transport chain couples electron transfer between an electron donor such as the NADH and an electron acceptor such as the oxygen with the transfer of ions, that is protons, across the membrane. So the resulting electrochemical proton gradient is used to generate chemical energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate. Electron transport chains are the cellular mechanisms used for extracting energy from the sunlight in photosynthesis and also from redox reactions such as the oxidation of sugars or in respiration. So in mitochondria, it is the conversion of oxygen to water. The electron transport chain usually comprises an enzymatic series of electron donors and acceptors in it. So each electron donor passes its electrons to a more electronegative acceptor, which in turn donates its electrons to another acceptor. So that process, the continuous process, is called as electron transport chain. So until the electrons are passed to oxygen, the most electronegative and terminal electron acceptor in the chain, this electron keeps on passing. So passage of electrons between the donor and acceptor releases energy, which is used to generate proton gradient across the mitochondrial membrane. So for that, ATP is used. So that is the process used in electron transport chain. So these are the main cycles which we can study in metabolism: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, electron transport chain. All these are important subtopics in metabolism.